This is KM Wyland, and you're listening to the 167th episode of the Wordplay Podcast. I think only a writer would find herself ridiculously and smugly happy to have caught typos even the professional proofreader missed. But then, of course, only a writer would be looking for those typos. This week, I started in on the first of the last two proofs of Dreamlander. On the one hand, it's super exciting to be this close to finishing. At this point, I've read the manuscript over so many times that my eyes are practically crossing at just the thought of it. But on the other hand, it's also a bit sad. I've lived with this book for something like 11 years, and we've had quite the intensive relationship for the last year in particular. And now, we're nearing the end. Why the adverb isn't as dead as Mark Twain would like. The latest post in the video series on my blog points out 3 reasons writers need to be even more dedicated in stamping out the dreaded adverb. To watch it, visit my blog at wordplay-kmwyland, that's weiland.blogspot.com. New videos are posted every Wednesday. And now, I hope you enjoyed this week's podcast. Why story beginnings and endings must be linked. The ending of your story is a long way away from the beginning. 300 pages or 100,000 words is an extraordinary journey. Contemplating the ending from the vantage point of the beginning is like looking up at the top of Mount Everest and imagining yourself, in all your wind-blown, frostbitten glory, standing up there with your hands on your hips and your foot propped on a rock. It's all a bit hard to grasp, and by the time you do make it to the top of the mountain, it's going to be almost as difficult to peer down the rocky slopes and try to remember the base camp you left way back at the beginning of your trek. This is a fact, but it's also a fact that the only way to achieve a strong ending is to remember the beginning. No need to watch where I'm going, just need to know where I've been. So says Mater in Pixar's Cars. Although writers need to pay as much attention to the road ahead as the road behind, there's a lot we can learn from a good rearview mirror. The beginning and the ending are 2 halves of the same whole. In some senses, they're mirror images of one another. The beginning asks a question, and the ending answers it. This is the key. If the ending fails to answer the specific question set out in the beginning, the whole book will fail. So what is this question your beginning is supposed to ask? We've talked before about the necessity of hooking readers with an opening question, but this hook question may or may not be the question that is answered in the ending. The purpose of the hook question is to grab reader curiosity. Once it's done that, its primary purpose is accomplished, and the question itself may be answered later in the same scene, so long as another question, and another reason to keep reading, is promptly raised in its stead. The question that will be answered in the ending is your story question. This is the question that will fuel the entirety of your plot. Will the heroine find true love? Will the anti-hero be redeemed? Will the bad guys suffer justice? Of course, your story's own unique question will be even more specific. Will Margie stop her self-destructive lifestyle of drugs and liquor before she loses her soulmate Tom forever? Will mercenary Mike learn to fight for a cause more worthy than just money and power? Will the Mafia be taken down by the intrepid undercover work of FBI agent Neil? Your story question might be a plot question, or a theme question, or both, but it must be presented in the beginning of the story in order for the ending to resonate. Once you've set up a powerful question in your story's opening, you have to follow through by deliberately answering it in the finale. Finding that answer in the story's ending is the only way to create continuity and resonance. If your story about Neil's undercover work in the Mafia ends by answering a question about Neil's marriage, or his daughter's autism, or his newfound talent for breakdancing, it's going to fail. These answers may tie up loose ends on the subplots, but they ultimately don't matter to the story arc unless the main story question is answered as well. When you choose to answer the main story question is also important. The moment you answer this question, your story is going to be effectively over. Answer it too soon, and what's left of your plot and your character's arc will die a slow and lingering and boring death. Figuring out how to properly link your beginning and ending takes a little forethought. But once you've identified your main story question, you'll not only know what your story is about, you'll also be able to strengthen your plot, your theme, and your character development all the way through the book. Thank you for listening to the Wordplay Podcast. To read a transcript of this episode, visit me on the web at wordplay-kmwyland, that's weiland.blogspot.com, and be sure to listen again next week.